And now, on with the show.
Hey there, everybody. It is whatever day it is whenever this comes out. This is Brett the Rock Johnson coming at you. It's time for a bonus episode of Film Fracas.
Hey, we're doing bonus episodes.
So
These are the casual episodes.
This is a very casual
Yeah.
episode. We're going to have a couple of weeks of this real casual, laid back.
Since they're so eager to start with me, as always, are Carter, the whole effing show Spilliards.
That's me.
And Robbie, the main man DeShazer.
Hey, that's me.
Yeah, we recorded and we had our season 2 finale.
That happened.
Not too long ago. Beauty and the Beast wound up the winner of season 2.
Yeah.
So, much rejoicing.
Yes.
And so, we're just going to have a little bonus episode tonight. Just real casual, real laid back. Hope you guys are sitting back, wearing some comfy clothes, drinking something you like, whether it's water or a Cosmo or what have you. But, so tonight we're going to be doing just like a little mini fracas of sorts. We're going to...
Trying out some smaller one-by-one content.
Yeah. And so... I think we were saying we're going to have a little mini fracas about last year's
summer blockbuster.
Yeah, so we're right in the middle of this year's summer blockbuster season, 2018.
But we could start off everyone talking about what their favorite blockbuster of the year is so far.
Oh, of the year.
Talk about
it so far,
and then...
Because I haven't seen a lot of the summer blockbusters.
And then we'll move on to our little mini fracas.
For sure. Carter, do you have a favorite summer blockbuster of this year so far?
I don't know. Come back to
you? I'm going to go ahead and address the elephant in the room of summer blockbusters for 2018. The Incredibles 2 is fantastic. I'm loving it. I've seen it once already. I'm very excited to probably see it again this weekend. But it's so good. We've been waiting, 14 years for it at this point. I know that's like everyone's been saying it, I'm an adult watching a kid's movie now or whatever, but there's some validity to it,
It's a movie. If you want to see it, you can go see it.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. I retweeted it, but it was the guy who was like, I'm an adult seeing The Incredibles 2? I'm just so quirky like that, aren't I?
I actually...
Parents, keep the kids at home for this one. This one's for the millennials.
Oh, no.
I loved Incredibles 2.
It's so good.
I thought it was exactly what a sequel should be. Mm-hmm. Where it's just like a natural continuation of the characters, and you learn more about each one, and it doesn't try to do the same thing as the first one. And it feels like, definitely kind of sets up for a third one, too.
Yeah.
Which I hope they do.
We'll see what happens.
I'd like to see
this one was incredibly successful financially. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure we're,
Are we making puns on this show now?
That was honestly on accident. The worst part about that was Carter gave me this death glare that I was not prepared for. And I was like, oh no, what did I do? And then he was like, you making puns? And I was like, oh, I did not mean what I said.
Maybe not a summer blockbuster, but a blockbuster. Probably my favorite so far this year is probably Infinity War.
Mm-hmm. I'd count it.
Yeah. It was actually the first summer blockbuster.
Okay.
Summer blockbuster season's creeping further and further into March.
Yeah, I didn't know if that was too close or whatever, but yeah, I had a really good time with Avengers Infinity War. I'd like to think I'm a big comic book fan, so I really enjoy the Marvel movies, and so it was just really, I thought it was really cool seeing everything come to a head like this and just everything coming together, and yeah, I'm really excited to see what happens in the next one.
Yeah, if you guys will remember, those of you who have been following us on Twitter for a while, we watched all of the MCU movies in preparation for Infinity War in probably the most delirious I've seen these two gentlemen ever.
It was a lot.
It was
a lot. But we made it.
We made it?
We did it.
We're doing a full... Are we going to do a full MCU rewatch again before
Who knows?
4 comes out?
Maybe. Maybe not.
You were talking about watching everything. The shows,
We'll see.
The one-shots,
We'll see. One-shots aren't hard because they're like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Shows...
I'll at least rewatch the entire MCU. I'm not sure about TV shows and such.
It's a lot.
Anywho. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm going to cheat and say, well, here, if I'm doing a blockbuster, there's one, but if I'm doing a not blockbuster, there are two not blockbuster movies that came out in the summer that I've really enjoyed. So my blockbuster's Solo: A Star Wars Story. I really like it a lot. Every time I've seen it, I've liked it even more, and I highly recommend going out and watching it if you haven't watched it yet. I think it's a lot of fun.
Brett was bored.
Robbie and I both enjoyed it.
I was bored.
But I said it lands right smack dab in the middle of my ranking of the Star Wars movies.
Yeah,
which means it's pretty good.
I think
a reminder that I like all 10 of these movies.
Yeah, I think it's really good. So go see that if you haven't. The other ones that are more, I think, better quality-wise are Hereditary and Won't You Be My Neighbor, which are two much smaller movies that Won't You Be My Neighbor doesn't even have a wide release yet. But
it will at the time of release of this episode coming out.
It should.
This will be coming out July 11th.
Yeah,
so
it should by then. But it's very good. I've quite enjoyed. Hereditary is probably the most terrifying movie I've ever seen.
I loved Hereditary.
I thought it was fantastic.
The more I think about it, the more I love it.
Yeah, no, it was absolutely fantastic. But I was scared to death. We were quite terrified.
Yeah.
And then Won't You Be My Neighbor, which I think I'm the only one who's seen it.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it soon, probably this upcoming weekend.
I absolutely loved that movie. It's the documentary about Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers, the making of his whole show,
Mr. Rogers'
Neighborhood, on PBS, and all of the accompanying things with that. And it traces it from when the show began until his death, and kind of the impact it had. And it's so good because I was like in tears the whole time. And it's weird because I never had a connection to Mr. Rogers. I never watched him as a kid. I knew who he was and the show and what it was, what it did. I had never watched any of it, and I found myself engrossed in the documentary. And it's just absolutely entrancing. And it's a shame because you learn what a pure and like nice person he actually was, and it's a shame that he's gone.
Yeah.
So, but that's where I'm at on those.
Yeah. I'll also throw out shout outs to Deadpool 2, which I'm sure
Deadpool was pretty good.
People that have listened to the show have probably seen at this point.
I liked it not as much as the first one, but I thought it was
pretty good. I will also throw a shout out to another documentary. RBG is really good as well. I quite loved it. It's got definitely a bias to it in that it's very pro-liberal justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So if that's not your thing, maybe don't go see it. But if you like the notorious RBG, if you like to learn a little bit more about her life and her marriage and to her husband who passed away not too long ago, who he seemed to be a fantastic man as well. Just a very interesting story, a very inspirational woman. I recommend seeing it. So kind of similar into the vein of Won't You Be My Neighbor. So.
All right, cool. Let's get down to our fracas. So
yes.
We're doing last year's summer blockbusters, so summer 2017. Basically how this will work is kind of like our series finales. We'll just talk kind of in general about the movies.
Absolutely.
Strengths and weaknesses. Our films today will be
Wonder Woman,
Baby Driver,
and Spider-Man
Homecoming. So
yeah.
Got a nice crop of movies. I thought last year's summer blockbuster season was a little bit weaker. There weren't to me as many standouts.
We got another pirate sequel.
Especially now, a year later. I think of these three movies we're talking about. Guardians 2 is there, but I'm not.
We had a couple of swings and misses.
Like, oh my gosh, that's the greatest thing ever. I liked Atomic Blonde.
Yeah, 2017 summer had a lot. Like I said, had a lot of swings and misses with Tom Cruise Mummy reboot.
It was awful. That film was horrible.
Baywatch, which I think was kind of going for like a 21 Jump Street vibe and did not do it well. Dunkirk came out, but I haven't seen Dunkirk, so we're not going to talk about it.
I quite enjoyed Dunkirk.
Another Transformers movie, another Alien sequel. Dark Tower was another one that was a swing and a miss.
Yeah.
I did go see.
Forgot that movie existed.
And if you want to stretch it real far back, there was a Fast and Furious, Fate of the Furious.
That was in April.
So. Yeah, if you could put Infinity War as a summer blockbuster, I feel like you can put the Fate of the Furious as a...
Yeah.
And then at the very end of the summer too, Kingsman.
Yes, Kingsman
season.
Golden Circle. Also not as good as the first one, but still pretty good.
So we had some pretty middle of the road things, but I think the three we chose were kind of the three standouts of the summer. But we're not talking about all the ones that we're not talking about. We're talking about the ones we're talking about.
Yeah.
Let's get into this Fracas.
Yeah, let's get into it. So let's start with Wonder Woman.
Okay.
Wonder Woman.
What were the film's strengths?
I thought, I feel like anytime you have Wonder Woman in a movie, she actually does tend to be the best part of the movie. She proved that between, her solo movie that we're talking about here. She did it. I think she was one of the best parts of Batman versus Superman, as well as the Justice League movie. I mean, the Justice League movie wasn't great in general.
Even the scenes with Wonder Woman in the Justice League movie weren't good. Like her character was totally watered down in Justice League. But
That's fair.
We're not talking about that. We're not talking about Batman v Superman because those are a whole nother universe of worms that I don't want to plunge my hands into right now.
But I think you do have, Patty Jenkins is a fantastic director and had a very clear vision of what she wanted to do in Wonder Woman, which I think, if I'm being honest, when I came out of it, I did come out saying that's probably the best movie I've seen from the DC Extended Universe, but maybe still not better than
That's also a very low bar.
Yeah.
Like, that's a bar that's like 10 feet underground.
That's fair. That's totally fair.
Shuffle over.
Yeah, but I felt like I was coming out saying maybe the best thing the DCEU has put out, but still maybe not as great as some other comic book movies you could compare it to. Maybe middle of the ground if you put it in with the MCU and stuff.
Yeah, it's like it's perfectly fine. I say it's on the same level as like the first Thor, the first Captain America.
Right.
It's on the same level as like any good Marvel movie. Like, it's not bad, it's not great, but it's good. It's fine.
I think it did a good job of doing an interesting origin story for,
I definitely associate it pretty heavily with the first Captain America because it's a very kind of similar structure.
I think sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, well, I enjoyed the design of the film a lot, like how Themyscira looked, and how they all interacted with each other.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Was like I feel like the strongest parts of Wonder Woman were the production design, the costumes,
the old London.
Yeah, like
I
hope
smoke and everything.
Yeah, I hope whoever was in charge of all the costumes and all like the sets and production design and everything. I hope they're finding plenty of good work because that was all really good.
It was done really well. Yeah.
Touching on Robbie said like Wonder Woman's like the best part of this. I think part of like Wonder Woman. Yes, Wonder Woman is the best part of it. I loved Chris Pine's character, Steve Trevor. But I feel like everybody that was not Wonder Woman or Steve Trevor was very paper thin and very just kind of like, oh, that's a character, that's another character. Then even when like Ares was revealed, it's like, oh, that's Ares. Now Ares is dead.
In the Ares reveal,
if you didn't see it coming, it wasn't very impactful.
Well, and it's like if you didn't see it coming, then it feels kind of out of left field because you're like, oh, this one character that we got 2 seconds of earlier in the movie is the bad guy.
Is Ares. Oh,
yeah.
But it's like, if you were also like, oh no, he's probably the bad guy because you can clearly tell they're misdirecting you from the main guy.
Yeah.
And so Wonder Woman and Steve Trevor are probably the strongest characters, but a lot of the side characters are very, very weak, I'd have to say.
That being said, about them being weak and like the villain was, for me, at least subpar. I think it was very kind of...
The thing that still bothers me about this movie, a year later at this point, just about that villain reveal, is seeing... to me, he'll always be Remus Lupin from the Harry Potter movies. But just when you go back and you see Ares being like thrown off of Olympus or whatever, and it's still his face underneath like the mask, and you're like, I felt like he was like a shapeshifter or something. Not that this was just what Ares underneath the armor looked like. Like
Ares just looks like a dork.
He was he wasn't disguising himself. He really is just this scrawny little guy underneath like this giant armor. And
I never thought of that before.
He like looks up and screams, and you're like, You're tiny, man. Like,
You're supposed to be the god of war.
yeah, it was. It still bothers me. Like, it just.
He is still performed quite well by David Thewlis.
Yes.
Yes. I will say yes. While I didn't find the villain necessarily up there, I did quite enjoy the action in the film. I was never really bored in any of the fight scenes. I thought I like slow-mo. I'm kind of a fan of the Zack Snyder slow-mo, which they definitely embrace in this to kind of keep a through line, I guess, in the action between these films.
Yeah, it's not my favorite, so
I
did like the action scenes.
I like the action scenes. I like the slow-mo. It doesn't bother me that much. Unless it's something, I don't know. Zack Snyder likes to use slow-mo, like, for someone drinking out of a cup or something. It's always often weird. This one, Patty Jenkins uses it quite effectively.
She definitely uses it more effectively.
In the action. Like the initial scene when Steve Trevor crashes on the beach and they're fighting the Nazis.
Yeah, they really use it to like accentuate like how quickly everything's moving and like really letting you see what's going on rather than like.
And definitely the No Man's Land scene as well.
Yeah, the No Man's Land scene was very inspirational. I actually quite enjoy the final battle. I think it's pretty cool because you get to see like. Because up to this point, you've just seen Wonder Woman really kind of kicking ass, taking names kind of thing. And this, it's like a raw power because she's basically like a god versus god kind of thing. So you get this raw, like in terms of movies where they talk about the blue beams shooting into the sky kind of thing, this is one where it's actually like warranted and it makes sense because they're two like gods using raw power to fight each other.
It's just the pure force.
It's just the pure force of both of them.
Yeah.
And so I really liked the action, how it looked, and I definitely felt the energy and power of each attack. So,
yeah.
And the music, I absolutely adore the Wonder Woman theme that Hans Zimmer made that they carried through to this film. Or just like shredding the cello.
That is a really great theme. But then it also kind of highlights how the rest of the score is. I don't know.
They pretty much only use the main theme, which is fine. But yeah, the rest of the score is kind of.
Like I couldn't tell you any of the rest of the score except for that one riff.
The rest.
What was I going to say? There was something I was going to. This isn't really a credit or knock to the movie, but just kind of like Wonder Woman, like is at its best when it's in a vacuum. Like if you were just watching it as, oh yes, this is Wonder Woman, the movie. Nothing comes before it. Nothing comes after it. This is not related to any other movie. Because when you do look at it in the continuity of the DCEU, none of it makes any sense. And it's like, oh, like, Wonder Woman left the world of men. Why? Oh, Wonder Woman was there in World War I. Where was she in World War II? She said she doesn't do anything. Why is she off fighting crime in Paris? And then, like, in Justice League, it's like, oh, why isn't she using her crazy god powers that she used to literally kill a god against these parademons and such? And it's just kind of like... Wonder Woman functions best in a vacuum on its own, but I don't think that's not a problem with Wonder Woman. That's a problem with the rest of the DCE.
Yeah, because she is in her best in this, which you can consider to be in a vacuum.
Yeah. Well, and
other than the small scenes that connected.
Yeah. Well, I said, that's nothing.
Well, some of that connects because in Batman vs Superman they have the picture of her with the soldiers, so you know she fought in World War I.
Yes.
And then left.
Okay.
And then you know why she fights after because after Batman vs Superman. They're basically like, oh, well, you know, we need to come out of hiding. And so that's why she's going off to help fight in Paris.
It's like...
So, that at least makes sense.
But then still, like...
What's going to happen
where was she in World War II? And then, in 1984, that's going to be the one where it's like, why is she coming back again? Kind of thing.
Yeah, and so it's just kind of like, when you look at everything, it's like, what? And then even then in Batman v Superman, it's like, okay, why isn't she using her god powers?
I know, yeah.
Against Doomsday to just...
No, it's not, it's not perfect. It was just you made a big list, and I was like, well, some of those connect.
Yeah. I mean, some of them do, but then it's just kind of like... They connect, but they don't really hold up very well.
But that's a similar thing to, at this point, why isn't Thor constantly using his,
I mean, he kind of is.
Yeah, but he could have used them against, Thanos and the ship.
He did.
He tries to.
No, he does.
I get. Does
like,
yes.
This has been so.
After Thor Ragnarok, when he kind of unlocks his inner true god power, he definitely uses it to great effect in Infinity War.
Yeah, but definitely at the end to bigger effect. But it's the same concept. It's just you could constantly be in this state, and it doesn't explain any reason why he's not.
He was.
Anyway, that's...
Anywho.
I'm
that
just
is
like
also
I'm just saying
a
it's
bit-
not quite the same.
Yeah.
he doesn't unlock it to do like the star, like to channel the star or anything like that. Like you just
That's
This is
that's arguable.
This
but
is a
yeah,
different...
we'll just
I'm
move
just
on.
saying
This is a
it's
different
similar
episode.
to.
I argue that it is a bit different, but we can talk about that later.
Well, that's a different conversation. Let's move on. I think we've talked enough about Wonder Woman. To let's do something not superhero. Let's do Baby Driver.
Bookend it.
What's the best thing about this movie?
I absolutely love this movie. It's not like perfect. No film is perfect. I quite enjoy very much. I mean, kind of the main thing about this movie is how it is so well timed. Mm-hmm. You know, the sound design and sound editing and everything with it, mixing. And just like, I remember I was at the premiere of it at South by Southwest last year, and everyone coming out of that very much before, because at the time it was just after Oscar season, and everyone was talking about La La Land, and a lot of people were comparing it to La La Land, and that it was a very kind of like musical movie, and I was like, it's not really a musical, but the fact that how they used music to like integrate into the story, and into like physically how you watch the movie, like the actions that everyone takes are set to a beat or to a song. And I thought that was done quite effectively, and it's very unique to that film. I don't really know of any other film that does anything quite like that at all. And I very much love that. I like the characters in it. I like Baby, and kind of his whole love story I think is adorable. Lily James is fantastic. John Hamm and his kind of turn to the villain, I think, is very interesting. I liked his character, and kind of, because it's not really expected, because the whole movie you're thinking Kevin Spacey is the villain, and then he has a kind of a bizarre turn to a good guy and then sacrifices himself, which I was like, this doesn't really seems very kind of drastic. And then his character I felt was kind of cookie cutter, bad guy in it anyway.
Yeah.
But then I really liked John Hamm's villain, and I liked John Hamm's like, you don't really see him as the villain that often.
Right.
And so I liked how he kind of channeled a darker side. I quite enjoyed of course, all the car chases are amazing. I thought everything was extremely well choreographed. I know in one of the behind the scenes, Edgar Wright talks about, they basically like strapped him to the back of the car, and he had a walkie, and he was talking to the people in the car on an earpiece with a walkie strapped to the back of the car, looking through a camera during all these car chases. And I'm like, that's just insane.
That is, yeah.
How he did that. And then in terms of negatives for the movie, I think it's extremely well paced. There are a couple of parts where the story itself naturally kind of ebbs and flows, that I think it's consistent in pacing of the movie, but I just kind of felt myself being like, all right, let's get to the next part.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily think that the film was poorly paced. I just think there are a couple of ebbs and flows in it where I was like, and let's move on.
Yeah. And what I think is the issue where that comes in is with multiple viewings of the movie.
Yeah, I definitely
once
felt
you
that
know
on the
what
second or
happens
third,
throughout the whole thing, you feel like when it lulls, you're like, come on.
Yeah.
I know that there's something cool coming up. Like, can we get
definitely
through with this?
Yeah, you definitely feel it on like the second or third viewing. And like I said, I thought Kevin Spacey's villain was kind of, or quasi villain turns into a good guy. I thought that whole thing was kind of I thought his villain was kind of.
It's fine, but it's a little over the top, and this movie
Yeah.
is a little over the top.
Yeah, I liked how kind of quickly Jamie Foxx and John Bernthal right at the beginning were dispatched, and you're like, oh, I didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
But I quite enjoyed it. Brett, what did you think?
I liked Baby Driver. I remember there was so much hype for this movie when it came out. I remember everybody was like, oh my god, Baby Driver, oh my god, Baby Driver. People were dressing up as Baby for Halloween. I was like, okay, maybe I should see this movie. And I saw it, and I think it might have been a little overhyped for me, because I was like, okay, that was really good. I like, all the car chases were great, all the action sequences were great. I did find myself, like, when it wasn't during a car chase and it wasn't during one of the action sequences, I was very much like, I definitely felt it kind of like, it didn't come to a screeching halt, but I definitely felt them, like, pump the brakes, pun intended. And I was kind of like, okay. And like the love story was cute, but like I'm having a hard time recalling anything that wasn't really like centered on like one of like the action set pieces. And so it's just kind of like, I thought Kevin Spacey's character was kind of like, oh, okay, like he's like a crime boss and like, oh, he's gonna let baby out of this. Oh no, he's not. Okay, no, he's gonna help him. Like, oh, now he's dead. Like, yeah, I did feel like that was kind of cookie cutter. I was happy John Bernthal was in it and then was out of it because I love John Bernthal. I was like, okay, so John Bernthal isn't going to die in this movie. Because I really like John Bernthal. I found Jamie Foxx's character to also be kind of cookie cutter. It's like, oh, he's crazy, he's evil. Mm-hmm. Oh no, what's going to happen to the crazy evil guy? Then they killed him, and it's like, okay, great.
Yeah.
And then John Hamm turned out to be the bad guy, and I was kind of like, well, they needed somebody to be like an antagonist for the rest of this movie, because this isn't a movie that's not going to have an antagonist based on what all we've seen. And so I was kind of like, oh, so John Hamm's going to be the villain. And so I was just kind of like, oh, okay, John Hamm's the villain now. But he still did a good job. I thought the whole changing his character, that was kind of vanilla, but that might just be me. But the way they integrated music into all the actions was really good. I think the writing and the story could, like, I don't want to say could have been tighter because that's not the right word, but it definitely like was a little too much of a drop off. Like after like all the super high adrenaline like gets you pumped, look at like the music, the action, the car chases, and it was like I did feel like it did slow down like way too much. And it's like, oh, okay, this is maybe not like with all that energy. It's like we need something to help us like coast off of that rather than just like just hard cold stop like that.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm. Two areas that I think we've kind of skipped on in this film. First of all, being just the incredibly well curated soundtrack for this film. Mm-hmm. I think
Edgar Wright, fantastic taste in music.
He really does have
has a fantastic taste in
music. And I mean, turned it into 3 great cameos in this movie. I don't know if you caught it. John Spencer from the John Spencer Blues Explosion, who plays the opening song Bell Bottoms. He's a prison guard in this and shows up. And then Killer Mike and Big Boy, 2 prominent Atlanta rappers. Big Boy, who of course is a part of Killer Mike, who's a part of Run the Jewels, and Big Boy are on Chase Me, which is the original song written for the movie with Danger Mouse. It's also very, very good. But those turned into some great cameos, especially those 2 being a kind of a shout out to Atlanta, where this movie takes place and was filmed.
It was filmed. Which I remember Edgar Wright was talking about that it was originally set in LA, I think. And then they went and filmed it all in Atlanta, and they basically said this city, has such a good kind of character on its own that let's say it's in Atlanta, which I really liked. And with basically all of Hollywood's filming going on in Atlanta right now, it's great to see some productions actually embrace the location.
Yeah,
for sure.
So I loved that. And Edgar Wright's, as always, I think, to me, this is maybe his most mature film. I don't know if it's my favorite of his. But you definitely see his growth in this one as a filmmaker.
For sure. And
kind of all of his humor and his action and stuff kind of all coalescing together.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to say is the other point we kind of gloss over is the moments of levity or humor in this movie are actually fantastic. I think that, I know Brett's not always a fan of interrupting maybe a more dramatic or action-heavy sequence with a joke. I know that's sometimes not a favorite of his. So I don't know how you felt about it, but I really liked moments like the Mike Myers masks, and stuff like that.
I like if the comedy's good and like actually like serves some kind of purpose, not just like, oh, here's a joke, because why not have a joke? But like the Mike Myers bit, like I loved that. I thought that was really funny. I'm talking about the stuff where it's like, oh, somebody like just died or is dying. Oh, let's have somebody make a joke because.
Okay, yeah.
Like when it's like a joke at a time when nobody would make a joke or do something stupid or silly like that, that's when it really bugs me. But like in this, like, given like the character of all the people that we've seen, like it made sense and it fit. So like when it works, it really works. When it doesn't, that's when it really annoys me.
Yeah. And I think that is in some of the moments where Jamie Foxx being used as, just the crazy violent guy or whatever, like whether that's cookie cutter or not, it does make for some, nice moments of little jokes and stuff that, when he grabs the earbud and just very high pitched says tequila. Like it's a fun moment. It's a fun movie. It
I quite enjoyed it. It's a good ride.
yeah, quite literally.
Quite literally.
I mean,
It's fun.
I will still say one of my favorite videos on the internet from last year was when they put out the video of tracing on Google Maps exactly where that first car chase happens.
Yeah, it's cool.
And you see where the jumps in location happen, but like probably because of construction, I guess. I don't.
Yeah, I also really like I said, this is to me, I think, Edgar Wright's most mature film thus far. But I really like that it has none of his regular people.
Yes.
Because Edgar Wright's one of those people that likes to use the same group of 5 or 6 actors and everything, and this one has none of them, and he made a very conscious decision to do that, and I think it paid off. I think it's interesting to see him work with different people, and
Absolutely.
I think it's good.
Sorry.
But
I was just going to talk, like, in terms of, like, narrative of the movie. I feel like there were a couple of spots that were, like, a little, like, too convenient. Like, during the whole, like, first car chase, because he's in that red car.
Yeah.
And, like, there comes that bit where there just happens to be 2 other red cars that look exactly the same from an aerial perspective. And, like, how he manages to, like... He like slows down in front of one of them so that he can get in between them, but yet they somehow all like stay in the same, like, they all stay right next to each other. That I was kind of like, okay, this is really cool, but was this planned? Is this just like a very, very lucky coincidence?
I
or...
mean, I've had that happen driving on the highway. Like I've driven next to a car that was like 2 cars that were almost exactly the same as mine.
Okay, but in the middle of a high speed chase.
I mean,
Like,
it's
like
one of those,
I've also driven next to cars that are the same car as mine, but we have not stayed perfectly next to each other for an extended period of time on a high-speed chase when people are slowing down in front of us and all of that. And
I'm just saying it's not impossible. It's not out of the realm of imagination. It's convenient, but it's one of those things convenient for the movie.
In principle, being next to a car that's the same as yours, no, that's very possible. That's happened, as we just said. But in the situation, the way that happened and played out, that's when it's like, like I can suspend my disbelief, but that's pushing it a little bit.
If I had to like really connect it, I'd just say like that's just a testament to Baby's observation of what's going on around him on the road, like,
I don't know, maybe
or taking advantage of the opportunity.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's just the way that it happened. I was like, okay.
Yeah,
but
I understand that.
But the rest of it was so good. I was kind of like, okay, like.
And some of it you have to chalk up to style over substance.
Yeah,
sometimes,
and,
like, this is a very stylistic film. Like it.
Yeah.
And I think it pays off when it, really hits those stylistic moments.
Like,
but maybe you maybe walk out with a couple of questions. Or,
and so then just like if we're doing like a mini fracas, that's something.
For sure.
That's something I got to think about and consider. But.
So Spider-Man?
Spider-Man Homecoming.
Sure.
This is probably, now that I've sat with it for
a year
now.
A year. Probably almost exactly a year by the time this comes out.
I'm pretty much good saying it's my favorite Spider-Man movie that they've ever made. For a long time it was Spider-Man 2. But I watched it not too long ago and found myself not as in love with it. But I absolutely adore Spider-Man Homecoming. I love that he's the proper age. I love that he's...
that's very nice.
I mean, I love Tom Holland. I think he's a fantastic actor. I think he very much embodies Peter Parker.
Both Spider-Man and
Spider-Man. He's got that kind of sarcasm that's necessary.
Yeah, he's got the...
But he's also got that kind of, like, wonderment, especially whenever he interacts with Iron Man.
Yeah.
So yeah, I absolutely, I love this film. I think the villain is fantastic. I think Michael Keaton was menacing and great.
So scary.
I thought it handled all its connections well. It definitely felt more like a smaller scale Marvel movie, not quite as
For sure.
extreme as all the other ones necessarily have to go.
I remember going this thing didn't have the best build up to it, because I remember everybody was kind of like, we just had a Spider-Man reboot, why do we need another one? And I was kind of on that train of yeah, I'll go see it, but I'm not going to be happy about it. And then they revealed the logo, and it was it's not a great logo, trying to emulate the old comic font. It was this movie, But I remember going in, I was kind of all right, I'll just suspend any bias and everything and just watch it. And I remember just having fun and just having such a good time the whole time. I was okay, so he's dorky, nerdy, high school Peter Parker. Okay, that's really cool. But I remember the moment where it got me, where I was no, this is Spider-Man, is that scene during his opening, his first montage of him going around the city, when he's giving the old lady directions and stuff. I was oh my gosh, that is that's something Spider-Man would do. And I was kind of okay, no, they know who Spider-Man is. The rest of this movie is all up to the villain and the action, the conflict,
for sure,
how we get there and everything. It's just, yeah, and you were right, the wonderment and the wit and the sarcasm and everything. It's they sat down, they read some comic books, they did their research, they know who Peter Parker and Spider-Man are supposed to be, and I just
yeah,
God, yeah. It's so good.
So you talked about it feeling more like a smaller scale MCU movie, which I definitely agree with you on. The thing I really like about it, though, is it does feel still like it's on a larger scale than any other Spider-Man movie we've seen. I just the presence of a universe outside of New York City.
Yeah.
Feels just... I don't know. I feel like it gives Spider-Man a little room to breathe.
Yeah,
makes him feel just having him connected to the greater universe does make it, in my opinion, a little more fun. Gives it a little more room to breathe. You have, especially when you're making. If we're being honest, not all of us are totally tapped. Not everyone in the world is totally tapped into exactly which universe every single comic book movie exists in.
Yeah.
So what Sony ran into when they were making the Amazing Spider-Man movies was, people going, so what do the Avengers have to do with this? Or, and this,
It very clearly says, no, we're in the same world.
Yeah.
Here's Tony Stark.
Yeah.
And it,
Here's Captain America on our gym videos. Here's...
But it feels nice to have it.
I loved that.
It just feels nice to have it all, under one roof now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I definitely...
That's real nice.
That's part of my favorite part of any of these MCU films is, especially as they progress more and more, just the general connectivity of because even Ant-Man, which is one of the more secluded ones, you get...
Also smaller scale.
You get, Hank Pym talking about, people dropping cities out of the sky. So you know that this is a bigger part.
And they even
got it and being isn't this a job for the Avengers?
For the Avengers?
I think our first thing we should do is call the Avengers. And then he even has to go to the new Avengers
facility
compound and fights the Falcon in what I think is one of the best fight sequences in any of the MCU movies, or at least it's one of my favorites.
Yeah. So just that kind of stuff in Spider-Man, the general connectivity, whether it's the gym video or...
It's it's not overbearing.
Yeah, it's not overbearing.
Or heavy-handed. It's not remember, we're part of the MCU, remember?
Which, and a lot of people, rightly so, kind of had the worry that this would be like Iron Man 4 with Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Because he was so heavy in the marketing. I never was worried about that because I thought it was very similar to a Pirates of the Caribbean situation where this is the star that we want you to go watch the movie for. Go watch it because Robert Downey Jr. is in the movie. Whereas, Pirates of the Caribbean, it's go watch this movie because Johnny Depp is in it. He's front and center in everything, even though he's not, as we discussed in our previous season, the main character of that movie. And so you have that kind of happen in this Spider-Man Homecoming, that Tony Stark, not the main character, but he's definitely heavily featured in all the marketing because they want you to go watch the movie. And it worked.
I'm looking at the poster right here. You have a big old Iron Man and a big old Tony Stark.
Yeah, I remember seeing...
Which it's not a great poster.
What I always thought...
No, that was another thing. I was none of the posters for Spider-Man Homecoming I thought were good. I didn't like any of them. And I was oh, this movie's going to be something. But then I saw it and I was so pleasantly surprised. And just... Yeah, because I was on that train. I was Tony Stark's all over these trailers and all over these posters. This is going to be Iron Man featuring Spider-Man, not a Spider-Man movie. But I need to learn to just suck it up and go watch a movie.
Yeah, no.
Like,
I had more faith in them that they wouldn't do that.
like, yeah, I think Spider-Man: Homecoming is like, oh my god, I used to be like one of those like angry like fanboys. I was kind of like, oh, this comic book movie straight from the comics in these ways, so and like I managed to chill out over the course of college. But I think Spider-Man: Homecoming is definitely the one that just kind of like broke me of that bad habit where I was kind of like, it's a movie. Just,
they don't
just watch the movie, man. Calm down.
They're inspired by the comics, but they're not meant
I know
to be
that like it's
from the comics.
I'm like so embarrassed to like I look back on my life and I was like, oh, I was one of those people, and I feel the need to go like take a shower and like call and apologize to everybody I've ever talked to about a comic book movie.
Yeah.
I will say that a part of that bigger universe, but also still feeling small, is the villain in this. Michael Keaton's Vulture is like, I mean, because the tech comes from the Battle of New York, but like his goal isn't to, take over the world or, help Thanos come.
He's a very blue collar villain too.
He's a regular guy that got affected by everything.
And he's got a very like strong motivation as to why he's doing what he's doing.
He's fantastic, but like it's a big part of that.
Yeah.
It's connected to the larger universe, but like he's not,
he's
not a big scale villain. He's trying to make a living.
Yeah, he's just a regular, like you said, he wants to make a living. He's not like Zemo, who was this guy that was affected by everything, but yet manages to somehow totally infiltrate and destroy the Avengers. It's like, no, it's just a guy who was affected by it, and he's doing what he can, and just
he's using the skills he has to.
It's like this is something that could have and probably would happen to somebody that if this was like the real world.
Also, one of the few Marvel films that I think quite effectively has a twist.
Oh yeah,
with them revealing that his love interest is the villain's father.
Yep. Which I think is just a fantastic twist, don't you guys?
Yeah. I remember like me and everybody else in the theater, like you could hear everybody just be like, what? Like I was like, how did I not see that coming? But you watch it now and it's like, of course,
it makes sense.
It makes sense.
I could sense it coming up, but I wasn't like I could tell something was off when he was coming up, and then I was like, "Oh, that's what's off."
Yeah.
Like,
so I really,
if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Just being like, something's not right here. Oh no.
And anyone who says that Michael Keaton was not an effective villain need only look at the scene with him in the car, where he basically tells him, "I will murder you.
I will kill your family and everyone you love." And it's like,
I'm loving this.
I'm sorry.
Not a nice man.
You are an actor.
Yeah.
You are not just Batman.
I'm loving the Michael Keaton renaissance we've had in like the last, 5.
I mean, he's always been a great actor.
He's always been good.
I don't necessarily know that it's a renaissance.
The fact that he's come back into the public eye doing a lot more.
People remembering him, but So I only really have one other quick point. I actually really enjoy the score of this movie. It's Michael Giacchino.
Oh my god.
He did it. This is his second MCU film, I think, after Doctor Strange.
He did Doctor Strange?
He did do Doctor Strange.
Cool.
This is one of...
I should rewatch that movie.
I used to be one of those people who was like, none of the MCU movies have their own unique theme, but that's actually not true. If you go back and listen to each score, they do all actually have their own characteristic theme. Yeah. People just don't listen to them enough.
No.
And Spider-Man definitely has a good one, and I really like it. And he also utilizes like the classic Spider-Man theme.
Yeah.
On top of his own new one that he has in the film. So I really like the score for this one and the music choice, because they have some music in there, and I think like the very end with Aunt May and it cuts right to Blitzkrieg Bop. I think that was used quite effectively.
Yeah.
That's kind of what. Does anyone have anything they didn't like in Spider-Man: Homecoming as much?
I mean, it's really good.
Yeah.
And what I think is maybe not a criticism, because I think it does it well and, makes the... And I think it's a little paint by numbers at times.
It definitely, follows the formula.
But I think where it excels is what it does with those, those familiar beats, but making them feel fresh or making them feel at least, worth your time.
Because it's like, this is the part where like the hero doesn't know if he can do it, but like the way that it's done, it's just kind of like there's just
yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's a real criticism, but I'll say it's
That sounded more like a positive.
Well, this one,
I started and I'm like, the more I think about it, I'm like, this isn't really a negative, but it's a little paint by numbers.
Yeah, this film also being more smaller scale doesn't have quite as big of a disconnect between audience and what's going on in the screen.
Right.
Like a lot more people in the audience can at least I myself as recently out of high schooler when I had seen the movie, could very much identify with Peter Parker and his friends. And it's one of the few movies where I was like, no, this actually kind of captures high school. It's not like an adult saying, oh no, this is what kids do in high school.
Yeah.
This felt very much like an organic environment of what you would see in high school.
It was a lot better. I did like that.
If you want to watch an example of what adults think high school is like, go watch the CW's Riverdale. It's almost hilarious how much they missed the mark on that.
Exactly, yeah. The thing I'll say about it is it feels so much more like high school. Of course, his bully is going to be in the same club as him.
Yeah.
The people you hang out with in high school, you don't. No one ever gets actually bullied by the jocks because the people that get, the nerds don't hang out with the jocks.
Hang out with the jocks.
They don't know who each other are.
Yeah, exactly.
I will admit, the comic fan in me was a little disappointed that Flash wasn't one of the jocks, because in the old Spider-Man comics,
oh for sure,
Flash it's so stupid. It's so funny how Flash Thompson is the jock, and all the girls are like, Peter Parker, why would I go out with a science geek like you when I could go out with a man like Flash Thompson? And I was just a little disappointed Flash wasn't some leather jacket wearing jock that was just pushing Peter Parker around.
But he's also definitely
But no, I it's just I'm only half serious when I say that.
But he's for real a high school bully, calling him Penis Parker, and
driving his dad's Audi to school and everything.
He's ridiculous, but it's so much more like high school than
it's real.
Yeah.
And we talk about how movies always have an ebb and flow and can't be on all the time. When we were doing our MCU watch through, watching Spider-Man Homecoming, I remember being
it's pretty
this
much
movie
on
is
all the
always
time.
on. This movie doesn't have a dull moment. No, it's not always action, but I remember being there was not a moment where I was ever okay, let's get to the next part, or bored or anything. I was just kind of if I feel Spider-Man Homecoming is probably the closest in recent memory a movie has gotten to being on the whole time for me.
Yeah. I feel there's just so much going on that you can bounce from situation to situation, and you're not ever oh, this is kind of the boring one, or the one.
Well, you also have a very high energy protagonist.
Yeah. I think that's what makes it really work.
Well, you have his story with the academic decathlon team. You have his home life, which is still very interesting. Yeah. You have him and Happy Hogan and Tony Stark. It's all three of those kind of situations that Spider-Man and Peter Parker find himself in this movie are all interesting to watch. So when you bounce between them
you're
to
bored.
fill time between the obvious gaps between those, you're not bored because all of them are engaging.
Yeah. So
we've talked a lot about all three of these
movies. I think we can do our winners and losers.
For sure.
So my winner.
I guess we just do winners because we're just choosing the best one. Do we need to do a loser?
I guess we can just do a winner. My winner, I guess it's not going to be that difficult.
Such a positive.
If we just do winners, I don't think it's going to be that. Let's do a winner and a loser. So our winner is, my winner is...
Speak for yourself, Carter.
My winner is Spider-Man Homecoming. I don't know about everyone else, though I have a sneaking suspicion from our conversation.
I'm also going with Spider-Man Homecoming. As we kept talking, I really enjoy all three of these movies, but as we kept talking, I was
no one could come up with a negative.
Right. I really liked it, and the more we talk about it, the more I realize it's a really good film.
It's a good movie. I can't believe and I feel so bad. I can't believe there was a point in time where I did not want to see this, and I was not excited for this movie.
Yeah.
In case you couldn't tell,
yes.
my winner is also going to be Spider-Man Homecoming.
I mean, I knew as soon as we chose this movie, and I remembered that Brett drove to San Antonio, to get a Mondo glass of this movie.
The Alamo Draft House, every now and then they'll have a promotional pint glass done in conjunction with Mondo for specific movies. I remember when they made one for Spider-Man Homecoming, and I was like, oh, it's a nice glass. Too bad I don't want to see that dumb movie. And then I saw the movie, and I was like, I was so wrong. but then I didn't remember about the glass until like relatively recently, and I was like, oh, I want one of those. And I found somebody selling one on eBay, and they're like, oh, I'm selling it for this reasonable price, but with shipping, it's going to come to a very unreasonable price. And this person was selling it from San Antonio, so I messaged them. I'm like, hey, can I just meet you in San Antonio and pick it up? And they were like, yeah, sure, that'd be so much easier. And I was like, okay. So one Saturday afternoon, I drove down to San Antonio, met this guy at a Starbucks, bought the Spider-Man Homecoming glass from him, and came home.
But
Yeah.
now,
Shout out to Alamo Drafthouse, probably the best theater chain in the country.
Yes.
And shout out to Mondo. They make some good ass posters.
I'm ready for the Mondo film Fracas merch that I'm going to
Didn't
start.
Alamo Drafthouse go through a whole like hashtag Me Too kind of thing?
Kind of, but it was more Fantastic Fest.
That was more Fantastic
Okay,
Fest
okay.
and Birth Movies Death.
Okay, I just remember seeing
The theater chain, however,
Theater chain.
my
still-
favorite in the country.
Yeah,
Everyone's
it's pretty
general opinion was theater chain, awesome. Some of the people involved with it, not
good. Okay,
great.
that's what I should have said. Sorry,
So,
thanks guys.
Yes.
No,
but-
because
That's why I keep
but
you.
Mondo and Alamo Drafthouse still very
Yeah.
good.
Oh yeah.
I think we ought to do
Our loser.
our losers. So my loser this week is Wonder Woman. Between Baby Driver and Wonder Woman, I go back and forth, and I think Baby Driver is a better made film altogether as a unit. I think Wonder Woman has some great parts, but overall, I'm kind of like, meh. So that's how I feel on it.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we only have 3 movies to choose from, and my loser this week, I think I'm also going to go with Wonder Woman. Like I said, I like and really enjoy all 3 of these movies. They're 3 of the best movies that came out last year, but just when it came to terms of what I wanted to watch over and over again, I did. I think I choose Baby Driver. The way it's stylistically, everything is timed to the music. Everything, just Wonder Woman. While it has its great moments, I don't think it measures up to the other 2.
My loser is also going to be Wonder Woman.
Wow, welcome to the Sexist White Male
Oh my
Podcast.
God,
We are
like-
the worst, aren't we?
Apparently, never mind. We shouldn't have done that.
We're done. Our loser is us.
It's us. We lost. We lost today.
Good. Like,
Will this episode ever get to air? Who knows?
Probably. We need content.
Carter said it best. Like, Baby Driver is
Yeah.
a better made movie. That's not speaking to any it's not speaking to the genders or anything. That's just when you look at it, like Edgar Wright just made a better quality film, and I think Patty Jenkins this isn't to discredit Patty Jenkins and be
Yeah.
like, oh, you made a bad movie. It's like I think she had to work with a number of constraints, having to tie this into a whole
Universe.
poorly made universe and everything, and so she did not make a bad movie, but I just think
Well, and
Baby Driver is just a little bit of a better made one.
And none of this to discredit the impact of Wonder Woman
Oh,
and
no,
significance,
not
which
at
I think
all.
is absolutely amazing and fantastic, and what it's done as an inspiration
absolutely
for so
agree,
many women and people across the world, and I kind of felt this when the movie came out. I mean, people were talking about it for Best Picture and all this, and I was like, this movie's not that good. I was like,
It has an impressive
I was like,
impact. and
this
it's-
movie is incredibly influential and impactful, and it should be celebrated for both of those things. But if you're looking at the quality of a film, it's not that great. It's perfectly fine.
I remember I had a conversation, or at least I remember hearing somebody say, oh, it's about time they made a Wonder Woman movie. I'm like, I know, right? She's a big character. Yeah. It's about time we got, the last of the big 3. And they're like, what? No, it's about time we had a big, female superhero movie. I was like, oh, yeah, that too. I was just kind of she's a big part of comics. Yes, there should be I honestly, even though I love Ant-Man, I believe, a Wonder Woman movie should have happened before an Ant-Man movie. Mm-hmm. Not just, but...
Not that those decisions
I like
had
both of
anything
them.
to do with each other.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying in terms, when you look...
In terms of culture.
Looking at, who are the big popular comic book characters and everything, I'm like, why did it take this long to
We
make
really should have gotten
movie?
a Wonder Woman movie before we got an Iron Man movie.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the 3 most popular characters in comics are still Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman, and that's more popular than any Marvel comic. And yet, Marvel's been able to make all these weird ass superheroes come into the zeitgeist. So,
yeah,
but overall, that's kind of a wrap. So
there we go.
Our winner this week, of course, being Spider-Man: Homecoming.
Do we want to say who chose what movies, or is
No, because we're fine.
We're fine. We really just chose 3 movies
we
to
just
talk
picked
about.
3 movies to talk about.
No teams.
You can find me on Twitter at CA Spilliards, like spills something yard and an S. My recommendation this week is... Oh, I didn't think that far ahead. Go watch, because I'm looking at the poster on the wall, go watch Star Trek Beyond. If you haven't seen any of the other Star Trek movies, I highly recommend it. I would recommend you maybe watch the J.J. Abrams 2009 Star Trek to get some context for the characters. But I think Star Trek Beyond is absolutely fantastic. Might actually be my favorite of the new movies. It very much feels like you get the chemistry between the characters that very much feels like the original series. And everyone's kind of, at this point, more comfortable in their role. And I think the villain is good and it's well written. And it just kind of itself feels very Star Trek-y, which the previous two films before it felt very kind of action-y.
Yeah.
So.
I remember seeing the trailer for Star Trek Beyond, and I thought it was somebody whoever made this trailer also saw Guardians of the Galaxy. Because I remember it felt very similar to the first trailer for Guardians of the Galaxy, and I don't know why, but I got it in my head that Star Trek Beyond was going to be a wannabe Guardians movie. And thinking on it now, I'm like, no, that wouldn't make any kind of sense. Nope. And I've realized I come to a lot of unfair and unnecessary snap judgments when it comes to movie trailers.
That's why I'm just watch a trailer and decide if you enjoy it or not. Don't think too much into it.
I know. I'm working on it. I'm working on it. So I should probably watch Star Trek Beyond.
It's fantastic.
It's really good.
I've heard it's good. Maybe not right now, but anyway, you find me on Snapchat at Brett JHNSN1. Post a review of a movie as close to every day as possible. You can let me know what you think, agree or disagree, just boycott me or something. I don't know.
For example, what have you reviewed recently? Just giving people an idea, the people that don't follow you yet.
I mean, I review I'm kind of all over the place, but the last couple movies I reviewed were the first Hellraiser, which I gave a thumbs down because that movie is not good. There is one good scene in that movie. The rest of it's boring and not good, and I do not like it. I recently reviewed because I reviewed Ocean's 8. I gave Ocean's 8 a thumbs down. If you want to know more, you can message me. We'll talk about it. I reviewed the rest of the Ocean's trilogy. I gave Ocean's 11 and 13 a thumbs up. I gave Ocean's 12 a thumbs down. But I review stuff. I'm kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
My recommendation today is going to be I don't remember what year it came out, but the Asian horror film House, also known as Houseu.
1977.
1977.
One of my favorite movies of all time.
Oh my god, I love House. It's so beyond off the wall. It's so wild. It's so good. It's technically a horror film. It's not very scary, but it's just
fantasy horror.
It's a fantasy horror. Yeah, it's a crazy, weird, great experience. It's such a fun time.
Mm-hmm. Very, very good. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Robbie_DeShazer. Definitely follow me on Instagram. I'm going to start doing some more things with live video coming up soon, especially on my trip to Disney World in Orlando, Florida, coming up very, very soon when this comes out. So follow me there if you want to see me, just interacting in my daily life, but some cool things to come. My recommendation, I'm going to go with the new film Tag. It was a lot of fun. One of the 3 very solid comedies that came out this year so far. But really good. Definitely recommend it. Go see it in the theaters. Prove that straight comedies like this that are well made and cleverly written actually are viable options for studios.
Yeah. Until next time, thank you for listening.
Oh yeah, Phoenix isn't here to say bye-bye. We'll cut that part out. Yeah. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Film Fracas. We know there are a lot of shows on the web, and we are so glad you took the time to listen to ours. Thank you Brett Johnson, Robbie DeShazer, and Phoenix Arola for helping to write and produce each episode of the show. There's no team behind Film Fracas, it's just us, so consider giving us a 5-star review wherever you listen. It really does help get the word out. You can follow the show on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Film Fracas. Once again, thanks for listening, and we can't wait for you to hear our next episode.